All right, there's the sign. We are live. I am live and I'm recording a brand new Los Angeles Rams hat. This is the very first time I'm revealing this hat, and I think it's a special occasion because of who I'm going to be talking with. The one and only, what do we call you, the gangster blockchain or something like that?
Whatever you call me is what it is, my man. Whatever you call me.
Jeremy Epstein. That's what he's really called, but he is Mr.
Yes,
Block.
sir.
At least for me, he is Mr. Blockchain Tech, especially like marketing blockchain and engagement blockchain, and he writes about it all the time. He lives it, he drinks it, he sleeps it, he eats it. How you doing, man? And what exactly are you doing right now?
So I'm doing great. It's anytime I get to speak to Brent Leary is a good day. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. There's a beautiful park outside my house, across the street from my house. And every day I try to take a 60, 90-minute walk in the forest. It gets my heart rate up, allows me to focus entirely on the phone conversations that I have because I put one in my pocket usually, and I just get to engage. I read this whole thing about forest therapy and how it's good for your soul, so that helps. So just, trying to integrate, I don't like the work-life balance. I like the integrated work-life ideas.
There it is. You just like being a little different. Let's face it. It's just okay with me.
Well, that is the essence. That is the essence of marketing, is it not?
There it is. And I especially like the mountain man look you got going now too, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to cultivate like the Thoreau look. Like, oh yeah,
wow.
deep philosophical pondering. Yeah.
During the Walden period?
Yeah. A little bit, yeah, not too crazy, but just enough edgy that he's like, yeah, he must know what he's talking about because he's out in the woods and he's got a beard.
There you go. That's all you need. Out in the woods with a beard.
That's all you need. People just need.
And some sweet headphones too, by the way. All right, so
These are great headphones.
Yeah, they are. But you are my go-to person when it comes to blockchain, and you spoke at the last couple of CRM Evolution events. Thanks for doing that. And every time that you come to speak to that event, people always leave that session like, "What the hell did he just dropped something heavy on me? I don't know exactly all that it is. It's going to take me a while to bring it all in." But that's you because you come with a lot of stuff around this. So it's getting ready to go into the last quarter of 2019, heading into 2020. Yep. Give me like a high level overview synopsis of where, and particularly where, like the enterprise and the tech enterprise, where are they in terms of blockchain adoption? Is this early days? Have we even begun the game yet? Just tell me where we are with it.
Okay, well, I'll put this in terms that I know you can understand. We are well past kickoff and we are into the first quarter. I would say that we've got, there are a few points on the board, no major touchdowns, a couple field goals maybe. But the way I would substantiate that claim is as follows. 2 weeks ago, we conducted what we call our Blockchain Marketing Immersion Day for OMD, one of the, as I'm sure you know, one of the world's leading agencies. We had, the entire C-suite there, top level strategy, account planners, probably, 75 people in the room for a full day. And we helped them understand, or we just shared our knowledge about what we see happening in the the intersection of blockchain technology with the marketing function. On top of that, we had, 7 curated and hand-picked vendors who are sort of the leaders in the space. And what was really interesting to me is at the very beginning of the day, our client sponsor there surveyed his colleagues and he said, how many of you have either had a conversation with your clients or have had a conversation that your clients initiated about how to potentially use blockchain technology to reduce ad fraud, increase transparency, improve billing reconciliation, improve loyalty, all types of things like that. Wow. I would say that, maybe 10 to 15% of the room put their hands up. Now, you could say that's not a lot, but I would say that 2 years ago, the answer would have been 0. And
Wow.
so the most important thing I would say is we're seeing validation on the demand side from agencies, from brands. We're talking with multiple, innovation marketing leads at, top 50, top 100 brands about how to use these technologies. And we're trying to advise and help them understand the market. The second part of this story is the explosion of vendor offerings on the supply side. We have this thing which we, borrowed liberally from our mutual friend Scott Brinker, called the blockchain MarTech landscape. And that landscape, we started tracking all the vendors in the space. 2.5 years ago, or 3 years ago, when we did the first one, there were 22. We just released version 4 this month. There are 415.
Wow.
And so the vendor space is exploding as people start to say, wait a second, how do we use this distributed technology? How do we use cryptographic tokens? How do we use all these new capabilities to improve the operational efficiency, the transparency, the trust, most importantly, of the marketing function? And so, 3 years ago when I started, go ahead, man. Sorry, I get carried away. You know me. Sorry.
But no, this is good. So it went from like 20 something to over 400. What are the major, is it mostly driven by marketing tech, blockchain tech, or are there other categories that folks are getting in on?
Yeah, great question. So we copied, for the most part, we copied the Brinker landscape. We've since added a few that are unique only to blockchain. The biggest categories are, not surprisingly, like programmatic advertising, things like that. I mean, because you don't have to be an expert in advertising to know just how screwed up that ecosystem is, and it has, blockchain written all over it. So that's sort of where the heaviest concentration is. But if you look at the landscape, you'll see that it's really covering a lot of parts, nicely. And it's just been very exciting to literally watch this industry sort of get born and start to mature.
All right. So it's really, so it sounds like you said, what are we, like into the first quarter, moving into the second quarter? Is that where we are with this?
Yeah, I would say we're in the first quarter, because the other part is the third part of this sort of triad, if you will, is the pilot and the case studies. So for example, there's one company called Lucidity. I should disclose I'm an advisor to Lucidity, so keep that in mind. But they did a A/B test with Toyota, where it was for a campaign designed to drive, test drives. And the A team had all of the traditional infrastructure, everything they were doing normally, what have you. The B team they weren't the B team, they're less good. They were just the second team. They used Lucidity to basically simplify the back end process. When all was said and done, the reconciliation, the insurance, the assurance that the ads were being delivered where they had been purchased, all that kind of stuff. When all was said and done, they had a 21% improvement in business outcome, not in click-throughs, in business outcome. Wow. And we've seen a bunch of those from people like Amino and other players who are now, really starting to get some traction and demonstrate the value of the solution. So increased interest on the buy side, increased supply on the vendor side, most importantly, actual true measurements of value delivered in the pilot and initial implementation phases. Still early, we're probably, 1 or 2 drives into the game, but, I can see just from the people in the room and the conversations that we've had, that more and more people are taking this stuff seriously, which, it's going to be great for a lot of people. So it's good to see that.
All right. So you know where I want to go next and dig in, what area I want to dig into here. All right. So I think I did like 17 or 18 CRM industry events this year, from mostly the big vendors. We got the Salesforces, right, Microsoft, the Oracle, you name it, Pega, Genesis, there's a whole bunch. All right. So last year, didn't see that much discussion from the CRM vendors about blockchain. This year, I'm seeing it. Salesforce did a real big rollout in terms of blockchain CRM, and they had a use case with higher education about being
Right.
able to leverage centralized data from these participating colleges and universities. Because let's face it, there are students that take courses and classes at multiple colleges, and it's kind of hard to see their total transcript because it's hard to get them from here and there and another year. So they kind of roll out this use case of being able to have a agreed upon common universal transcript that these colleges and universities have participated and bought into, and then Salesforce being able to provide a tool that leverage that centralized data and marries it with what they have on the CRM side. So you're starting to see these use cases of CRM data being leveraged alongside of centralized blockchain data, and it's basically use cases that are industry driven. All right, that's like the one use case that I've seen across the board. But when I talk to you and when you talk to CRM Evolution, that's not the CRM blockchain scenario that you're focused on. All right, so I just set the stage for. Let me get out of the way and let you talk about what your vision is for CRM and blockchain.
Right. I'm either like a total visionary or a total like idiot who should be put away into an asylum. So we'll find out in a few years. Look, the stuff that all those guys are doing, it's nice. It's the kind of thing that will make data, cleanliness less of an issue because, as a former CMO, I'm very familiar with those issues. And that's fine. That's great. It'll make marketing operations more efficient. But I don't think that's not where the innovation's coming from. So as long as you have a centralized database, it's not really, that's under the control of anybody or even a small group of people, it's not really a blockchain. Like, I'm a purist in the sense that, there's distributed ledger technology, which will help all these colleges and universities. But a blockchain requires a native cryptographic, digital asset to pay for the services that the network provides. Now, in order to do that, by definition, for it to be of value, it has to be outside the control of anyone else. And so these data stores have to be decentralized. The future that I see when it comes to CRM, and it could be like 20 years away, I have no idea. The future that I see is going to be one where people have their identities stored on a decentralized blockchain. It's under their control, and then they can give access, permission, which can be revoked at any point, to other entities that might want to, pay for it, rent it. And I think in that world, CRM will not be about who has the most data in their data store. It's who can take advantage of the data that's available, who can analyze the behavior of these anonymous wallets, and these transactions in order to deliver value without knowing anything about the actual person aside from just that information. Because the fundamental premise of CRM companies is we need as much data as we possibly can get. The fundamental premise of decentralized networks is we don't want any of your data and we make it impossible to take it. And those are two entirely different worldviews. And I think, and maybe this is wishful thinking on my part, but I think there's a slowly growing zeitgeist that people are are becoming increasingly, pun intended, leery of trading their data for kind of quote unquote free services. And some people are starting to make the transition for trade-off of privacy instead of convenience. Now, it's early, and most people are not willing to do that. But as decentralized networks become faster, better usability, people will start making those choices in large numbers. And then existing companies will be faced with a challenge of having decreasing data about their customers. Now, there'll always be some, But I think the future of CRM is about understanding how to deliver value without the need for capturing, storing, and oh, by the way, making exceedingly vulnerable to hack, theft, abuse, and misuse, the limited data that's available on public networks. So again, could be wishful thinking, but right now, given Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and all that stuff, I wonder, and GDPR and all that stuff, I just wonder if people are starting to question the trade-off. Right now, there's no real viable alternative, but when that day comes, and I do believe it will come, I think you'll start to see, and we're already starting to see crypto native CRM platforms get sort of architected, not quite built. It's early, but I think you'll see that happen. So I could be wishful thinking. I could be a dreamer. Maybe the forest there is like getting me high or something, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Either that or being a Redskin fan. I don't know, something might be doing that. But all right, so let me ask you this. So it has to be coming from, to me, if I'm a CRM vendor, the value prop is kind of hard to see from a traditional CRM vendor. So you're thinking that it's probably going to be somebody coming from out of nowhere who doesn't already have the or CRM information. Yep. Most of these vendors have, because if you've got the data, it's kind of hard to let it go. It's kind of hard to say, all right, we worked hard, we did everything we needed to do, we got people in, our customers got people into their databases. Now we're going to basically, change our whole underpinning to allow our users who are in our databases, basically allow them to say, when they don't want us to access that information, when they take back the information. And that is a big paradigm shift. And I think it's going to be really hard for vendors to go with. What do you think?
Dude, I mean, you and I are old enough that we've seen this movie already. It's Barnes and Noble. It's versus Amazon. It's Blockbuster against Netflix. It's Craigslist against the classifieds. We have literally seen this movie many, many times. So you're right. Like, Marc Benioff is a bajillion times smarter than I am, and certainly a bajillion times richer than I am. But I think it's going to be just challenging. Absence if I were Marc Benioff, I would probably take some of my, venture capital fund and go put it into buying tokens in some of these crypto CRM networks. That's what I would do if I were him in order to hedge. Probably won't do it, and he doesn't really call me that often, so whatever. But absent that, I think it's going to be tough for them to change their paradigm. And, you don't want to get so full of hubris that you just assume the world's going to continue, because 20 years ago, he was the disruptor. And this is how it happens, man. Like we've seen this all in our own lifetime. We've seen this, let alone going back, hundreds of years of innovation. So I think you nailed it, bro. As usual.
What are these CRM crypto networks? Who should we be keeping an eye on? Who should Marc Benioff? Who should Larry Ellison? Who should all the major CRM players? CRM players, not players. That's me and Paul Breeden. What should the vendors be looking at? Who should they be looking at right now? Keeping an eye on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we actually started I don't want to say me, but we did start a project to do exactly that, which we call the DMO, Decentralized Marketing Organization. It's a project that was funded by a decentralized autonomous organization, which basically is a collective of people around the world who, there's no hierarchy, but they voted to basically provide seed funding to this. So that's sort of one. I just heard about one the other day. The name's escaping me, but you're starting to see, because the need is there. The need is there. So, some of the things that the team at Singularity Net is doing, a lot of these guys are building stuff in-house. If you go back, I'm an ex-social media guy, and you think about what happened at the beginning of social media. Well, first, people were just sort of managing it on their own natively. They build their own tools. And then the very first or earliest tools, like, TweetDeck or whatever would come out. That's kind of where we are right now. So, they're super small. I don't really know who you should keep an eye on right now, because it's like, no one remembers TweetDeck or all like Seismic or all these things that disappeared. But what they were is, portents of what was going to come. And I think that's what they should be aware of. It's not that you need to watch one or two companies, because who knows, but the industry, or the providing tools to decentralized networks to drive deeper and more really meaningful relationships with their network of stakeholders in the absence of anything but wallet and transaction history information. That's the thing they should be watching.
All right. So one last question, because I feel like, you might pass out on it at some point.
This is great, man.
Hey,
don't feel bad. Are you calling me old?
No, I can't, because I'm older than you, so I ain't gonna do that. But let me ask you.
And better looking.
That's up for debate. All right. So let's go
fair enough.
with what industry do you see blockchain going mainstream in first? Because I don't think we've seen gone completely mainstream yet. Is it going to be?
No, for sure.
Is it going to be something else, or what?
Well, that's a great question, but there are multiple answers, and it depends on the sector and the geography. So first of all, financial services is an obvious one, remittances, but it's not going to happen in the US or any Western country. It's going to happen in South America, West Africa, Caribbean, places where there's been a demonstrated lack of confidence in their central bankers, in their governments, and when there's a huge expatriate community of people who are paying 18% to send money back to, the Dominican Republic or whatever.
Wow.
So that's one use case that, if you live in Atlanta, Georgia, you have no idea what it's like to wire money to Lagos, Nigeria, unless you're Nigerian.
Wow.
So I think in that respect, you're going to see that, number one. Number two, excuse me, we're already starting to see the growth of something called decentralized finance, which is basically like co-op funding for startups. There's already $1 billion. And keep in mind, this is an industry that didn't exist last year. There's already $1 billion locked up in networks where people are loaning their money secured by smart contracts in the blockchain. No bankers, no brokerage, nothing. So bonds, you can earn 10% interest right now on dollar equivalent deposits if you do it in crypto, and I've been doing that. So there's that. Number two. Number three, not enough, but whatever. Number three is gaming. I think gaming is a big area, because what gamers are, like, they are already very technically savvy. They have a high tolerance for sort of new stuff and sort of buggy stuff. But what's also interesting is if you think about like Fortnite, $2 billion on Fortnite. But when you buy all those digital assets, when you quit the game, you lose them. Imagine being able to take them, resell them on the open market, trade them for something in like World of Warcraft or Call of Duty. Like, how awesome would that be if you're a gamer? Well, that's possible. And so you look at like CryptoKitties and you look at Cheese Wizards, places like that. These are early games, but the ability to take your assets and not only make them portable, but use like a gun from Call of Duty in, Gears of War if you want to. Like, you can do that. So I think gaming is another one. And then another one that I think is kind of a little bit of a dark horse is artificial intelligence. Because right now, AI is sort of the province of really, really big companies. You need huge data scientists. But imagine having an AI data marketplace that anyone who's like a small business person can say, oh, I would love to have an AI for this. You go in, make a request, someone's built a little thing. You rent it, and they get ongoing residuals because their ownership is secured by the blockchain. And that's what Singularity Net provides. And then I say the last one, if I'm going crazy, is sort of this idea that I mentioned before of decentralized autonomous organizations. There's a building in Prague, for example, that's managed on the blockchain. The whole governance and bylaws on the blockchain. It's people who they vote, there's no, all that back office stuff. We're talking orders of magnitude cheaper. I call it decentralized ERP. It's orders of magnitude cheaper. So I think, again, depending on sort of your geography, your target, I think you're already starting to see that. So it won't. And then, of course, the Bitcoin sort of global digital gold store of value thing in the face of this ongoing currency wars and quantitative easing, which is just another code word for inflation. You have more dollars in the marketplace. You still only have 21 million Bitcoin. You don't have to be a PhD in economics to understand that an increase in supply of the dollars and a fixed amount of supply of Bitcoin will raise the price of Bitcoin. So, to me, that's just a no-brainer and just a question of time on that. So, rant over.